Hello, Miami. This is 305 Sports Now, your home podcast and channel for all things Miami sports related. I am Will. Before I get into our guest today, I just want to say a few things. First things foremost, I want to say what's up to Coach Coop, all right, and the rest of the content creators that showed up at the meet and greet over at Caneswear, right? Hoodie Girl, Alex Donna. So we had a great time. We have I got my wristband. So if Coach Coop, you're watching this, and John Warren representing Coach Coop and so on. We had a great time at Caneswear. And also, there's a two-part series that we're doing today, myself and Q. All right. We're doing the first part one is going to be the Miami Hurricanes versus Clemson. All right. And then part two, which is going to air Sunday, because this is going to air Saturday. We're recording Friday night, but this is airing Saturday morning, Clemson versus Miami. Part two, which you guys are going to like, which is going to be our take on Mad Dog Russo's comments about Tyreek Hill, is going to be aired on Sunday morning before the Dolphins play the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday night. All right, so you ready, Q?
Let's do it.
How's it going?
Good, brother. How about you?
Good, man. Good. I see you representing the Panthers up there.
Oh man, gotta throw it on, man. It's one of many hats. I was looking through the collection, man. My girl gives me some hell about how many hats I have. We're in the process of moving in together and stuff, and she was looking at my hats going, oh my God.
That's good. So how's that going?
We have to get more hats.
How's that going, buddy?
Man. Everything's good,
bro.
Everything's good, man. Just living life, loving life. I mean, we have a good time. She makes it easy. I feel like I make it easy. So far so good. Yeah, but she was giving me stuff about how many hats I have, and I'm over 100 for sure.
Whoa! Wow.
Yeah. Over 100, easy over 100.
Wow.
About 125 or so.
Man.
So she's like, "You're ridiculous. You should stop buying hats." I was like, "We'll see. See how it goes.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm probably not gonna stop buying hats. But
I love them. You do you, man.
I love them, bro.
Hats are good. I like hats. I don't have 125 hats. I'll tell you that much. I don't have 125, but you do you, man.
Got some shoes, got some hats. Gotta keep them in rotation.
Nice.
So yeah, man, it's my thing. It's my thing, bro. I love some hats.
That's good. That's good, man. That's good. Oh man. All right. So Clemson versus the University of Miami. Both teams coming in 4-2. Both teams in need of a major win. Clemson, has had some tough losses this year. Okay, they had a tough loss to Duke. They had a very, very heartbreaking loss to Florida State, which people argue they should have won that game. And they barely squeaked by against Wake Forest. Okay, and they were able to pound Syracuse, but they had difficulty squeaking by Wake Forest. Red zone offense is not what was expected. Having a 5-star quarterback like Caleb Klubnik, and also picking up the runner-up to the national championships offensive coordinator Garrett Riley. Okay, this year coming in, Caleb Klubnik has 1,370 yards, 11 touchdowns, 2 picks, and it's not bad, but it's a 61% completion percentage. How do you see Clemson so far, Will?
Man, they've been interesting, right? I guess would be, and it's probably kind of a boring word, but they've been interesting in that, I think this is the first year in a long time that Clemson under Dabo has looked the way they've looked, right? Ordinarily, most years, they're 6 games in, they're 6-0. They're kind of chugging right along, right? You got, with the quarterbacks that they've had there, with the recruiting classes that they've had there, with the, with the guys that they've had going to the NFL, it's just been a well-oiled machine. If we're really looking at it, they've been the class of the ACC with the exception of, the last 2 years when now, Florida State, obviously they've been doing their thing. And then, you've had some exceptions, right? You've had, Pitt is good, every few years. Wake Forest, so on and so forth. But by and large, the class of the ACC has been Clemson. They've been in the playoffs most years. They won a title in 2016, 2018. We all know the names, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, so on and so forth. I mean, a ton of NFL guys. It's looked a little different this year, and with I think it's twofold, right? Who they've lost, which obviously top tier talent, but also it's interesting with Dabo because he's been one of these coaches that has been really anti-transfer portal. And to me, it feels like, if Clemson was the type of team that would embrace a transfer portal, then I feel like they just be able to go in there for the most part and go in there just kind of pick and choose whoever they want and be able to land, really good, transfer portal guys. It's Clemson, right? So you look at, what they've had go on the last couple of years, not only the guys leaving for the NFL and graduating the whole deal, but they lost both their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator a couple of years ago. Then the very next year, they replaced, and I can remember the guy who left, but they brought in Garrett Riley, like you mentioned, from TCU. Kind of mixed results. Obviously, now with Cade Klubnik, 5-star kid, but he started some last year, but this is his first year truly starting, and started off. He's kind of gotten it together now. He's been playing better the last few games, but rough start kind of to the season. Obviously, nobody expected the loss to Duke. To me, I definitely surprised by that. It was at Duke, but they didn't only lose that game. They were never really in that game.
Yeah, they were embarrassed.
They were embarrassed in that game.
Yeah, they were completely embarrassed.
So, and now Duke has shown that they're for real, right? That wasn't necessarily a fluke. I mean, Duke is a really, really good team. And I know it's probably hard. It feels weird coming out of my mouth. And we're talking about football, not basketball, right? But they've fluke. And then should have beat Florida State. If they had a kicker that was worth anything, they would have definitely beat Florida State. Sweep by, was it Wake? They just sweep by. So,
12.
I think to me, you're looking at small picture, for this game in terms, like if whoever loses this game, it's going to be toxic on pods, on Twitter. I'm telling you, it's going to be bad for whichever one of these teams loses on Saturday. And I think if we're looking at it, I'd say Miami probably needs this game more based on recent history, based on, little bit, further out in terms of history, what they've done against, or what they haven't done against Clemson, I should say. They've been terrible against Clemson, has owned them. They've owned them over the course of the last 6-7 years, and I mean it's been ugly. I mean they haven't been in these games. So when you're looking at where you're at and what could happen on Saturday, I think Clemson is more equipped to be able to handle a loss based on their recent history than I think Miami would be. And we know the Miami fan base. They can get. They can get angry, and they can, they're spewing fire on Twitter and around the message boards and the whole deal. So it's a really interesting dynamic to see kind of, what and how this game looks on Saturday. I'm really, really curious to see, how this goes. But I think small picture right now, I really feel like Miami really needs this game more than Clemson. Based on the fact that Clemson, this is the exception for Clemson, right? You look at what they've done. This is the exception. They're in the playoff. They're in New Year's Six bowl games. They're ACC. They win the ACC every year, so on and so forth. So really, this is one of those games that I feel like the pressure is on Miami to win. They're at home. I think Clemson is a 3-point favorite. Yeah. I was a little bit surprised by that, but to me, I think honestly, the pressure is on Miami this Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Miami needs this game more. Clemson has had very, very, with the exception of the Duke game, they've been able to pull out some games, and they could have beaten Florida State, if it wasn't for what they call a bad call, in terms of their coverages against Keon Coleman. But Miami does need this game. The loss of Georgia Tech still lingers, amongst the fan base. If you ask the players and coaches, they've put it behind them. But for the fan base, for content creators down here, podcasters, reporters, Georgia Tech is still there, and it has not gone away, especially since the way they lost to North Carolina, especially the way they've turned over the football. Miami's biggest bugaboo this year, the last couple losses has been the turnover. Telling a deck with interceptions, untimely timely fumbles in the wrong situations, whether it be controversial fumble against Georgia Tech, which I still say was not a fumble. His shoulder was absolutely down. Should have never been in that position. Never been in that position. Never been in that position. But nonetheless, it was not a fumble. And of course, but Henry Parrish fumbling at the 1 yard line against North Carolina, which could have shifted momentum much more in Miami's favor. They would have had a much larger lead heading into halftime, in that game in Chapel Hill. So Miami really needs this game. TVD really needs this game. TVD, mind you, though, he is outplaying Cade Klubnik. Okay,
He is. Yep.
his over 1,700 yards, 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 73% completion percentage. Klubnik has had better competition. Wake Forest is a better team than Bethune. And Syracuse is a better team than Miami, Ohio. But nonetheless, still TVD's numbers are still really good. The A&M game, he just balled out. That's always going to be you can't take that away from him, no matter what people say about Tyler Van Dyke and his performances, as well. One of the biggest criticisms down here, and I don't think it's a criticism, it should be criticized, is that he focuses way too much on Xavier Restrepo. How do you feel about that? I have my own personal perspective. How do you feel about what it seems to be that Tyler Van Dyke only focuses on one guy when he has many others that might be open?
If you have eyes, you can see that, right? I mean, if you have eyes and you watch any football for them this year, that's his guy, right? Leads them in receptions. Their roommates are super tight, the whole deal. I understand the comfort there, right? I understand, right? Every quarterback has their guy. Where I think the coaches aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and this is what happens with a first year coordinator, right? Because I mean, look no further than Clemson, right? They brought in a guy, didn't like him, boom, got rid of him, brought in Riley from TCU, and they're not where they want to be. So I say that to say the first year coordinator struggles are a thing. That's a real thing. And to me, where I feel like they've failed TVD is, and I don't know if it's just what I've noticed and what I've seen not happen in that offense, is TVD never has any quick dump out, they don't screen at Miami.
Yeah, you're
right. They don't screen. Like there's no running back screen, there's no receiver screen. They're not throwing to the tight end. Like Cam McCormick has played. I don't know what's happening with Jaleel Skinner. I don't know how that kid, as talented as he is, doesn't see the field. Riley Williams has played, obviously a really highly recruited kid, 4-star kid from IMG, has played, hasn't caught a lot of passes. So the tight end plays, but it seems like it's more, just to kind of help the running game, to help the offensive line. But again, they don't give TVD those quick check downs, right? It's like, hey, listen, if those guys aren't open deep, check it down. And when you see the replay, you see like everything he's scanning, and there's nothing like in that 2 to 3 yard range that he can just dump it down to. And so often you look at that and you go, man, if he had somebody to dump it down to, man, that guy would still be running. So I think it's as much I'm not trying to absolve TVD from anything, but at the same time, I think you got to look at Shannon Dawson and kind of wonder, why aren't you installing that in the offense? If you're looking at him, and they've protected him well. When you're looking at these interceptions, these are the ones that I've seen and I've been paying attention to. He's sitting there and he's just, he's bouncing. He's got 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds, and all of a sudden he just like launches it deep and throws it into triple coverage. So that's what I've noticed is his picks haven't been, for the most part, when he's been under pressure. It's when he's had time, and he's just like, well, there's nobody open. Well, and another thing is he's athletic. He's deceptively athletic, and I can't understand why he doesn't take off out of the pocket. When they give him so much room, because they don't really expect him to run. But we've seen it. We saw it against Miami, Ohio, where he had that that read where he kept it and around right tackle and ran for like 30, 40 yards. I mean, he's deceptively athletic. So to me, I don't know why you don't utilize that more. And at the same time, I don't understand why you don't just build in those checkdowns to, a running back or a tight end or something, because I feel like that would really, really benefit him. So he's not having to look deep all the time or only looking for X and throwing into triple coverage. I feel like that's something that they have to install in that offense and allow him some other reads. Again, I'm not going to blame. He's the one that gets to blame because he's throwing the ball.
Yeah.
But I feel like as an offensive coordinator and as coaches, I feel like you should be able to see that and be able to kind of install something to prevent that from happening and him locking in on that one guy and exclusively throwing him, because there's talent on that receiver room. We've talked about it. Like the guys contributing this year were all guys that were there last year. It's not like they're portal guys and they're true freshmen, super talented guys. Like none of those guys are really doing anything. All three of those guys, Jacoby George, Colby Young, and X, were all guys that were there last year. And they're playing well. Don't get me wrong, but I think they have to start getting more people involved and allowing TVD to just check some stuff, down to tight ends and running backs in order to prevent those careless, triple coverage, type passes that end up, ultimately getting intercepted.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'll be honest with you. Unless someone is deeply open, I really don't have a problem with him focusing in on X. The Shannon Dawson offense does like the slot receiver to see the football. Last season, I forgot the kid's name.
Hank Bell.
Thank you, Tate Dell. He played the slot. He played the boundary too, but he also played a lot of slot.
More in the slot than anything. Yeah.
Yeah, and he caught a lot of balls. Okay, he was Houston's leading receiver in receptions and yards. So Dawson likes the slot receiver first. Number one. Number two, it's not hurting the team. All right, some of TVD's interceptions are not being thrown to Xavier Restrepo. The one that he threw in triple coverage against Georgia Tech, that was a pick. But two of his interceptions were to Jacoby George. The one
Jacoby George. Is that...
Well, he threw one of them. One of them was deep to X, and it got picked off.
Yeah.
And Georgia, he threw 3 against Georgia Tech. Another one was against Jacoby George, and the other might have would have been intended for Colby Young. But nonetheless, like some of his picks are not going to Xavier Restrepo. Xavier is averaging 12 yards per catch. Should he spread it around? Are there more guys? Maybe, but it's not killing you. That's not what's killing you. As a matter of fact, Dawson's offense, the numbers they're putting up, Miami should be 6-0. Or at least 5-1. Even against North Carolina, they were still playing coverage when they were up by 21 points. Because on one of those drives, it was a 12-play drive. If you're playing prevent, it doesn't take you 12 plays to score. You're eating up the field. And the Brashard Smith reception, the touchdown reception, he had a guy on him. Okay, he beat his man, and the safety had creeped up. So there were still playing coverage. It wasn't necessarily junk time like I heard online. People are gonna get mad at me for saying that, but it's the truth. That's the way I saw it. Exactly. Okay, but I firmly believe, and I agree with you. Miami does not throw screens. They throw screens to the wide receiver. There's been a lot of screens to the wide receiver, but not enough screens to the running back. You have a Ferrari that's sitting on your bench named Chris Johnson. I would love to see him get open with receiving yards. Henry Parrish is quick as well. Again, screen passes to him would work well, or dump passes or wheel routes would work. AJ
Allen is a very capable receiver out of the backfield. I mean,
exactly.
He's a guy that could catch passes, and he can throw a screen to,
and he should not be allowed to block ever in his life. Okay, it should be criminal, a criminal offense to have that man block.
I've seen him get run over this year a couple times.
Ever again, like Shandon should be arrested if he puts that guy on block. Obviously, it's a joke, but the bottom line is though they need to do that again. Me with Rhett Lashley. Rhett Lashley's offense was very simple, but everybody got involved. All right. Will Mallory had a fantastic season under Rhett Lashley. Arroyo, when he was healthy, caught a touchdown pass. The running backs caught a lot of passes, with Rhett Lashley's offense, and that's a similar air. I mean, it's more tempo than Dawson's, but that is kind of an air raid-ish type of offense as well. So that has to be something they have to be doing to incorporate as well, because you do have, and mind you, we're recruiting 4-star beast tight ends. They may decommit and somebody hit the transfer portal if we're not careful, if we don't involve them, because in the end, that's also their career that they're looking at.
Yeah, but I think again, going back to with it being the first year, right? So, I think that's what a lot of people, and I think as a fan base with Miami fans, right? Because of the drought, that there's been in the whole deal, is like you want those results, now
microwave,
but or immediate, right? Hit start, 30 seconds later, boom, we're averaging 50 points a game. But listen, they're over 500 yards a game for the season.
Yep.
So that's one thing that again, if you dig into the numbers a little bit, the progress is there, right? You're halfway through the season, 4-2. By all accounts, should be 5-1. That they weren't going to beat UNC last week. Call it what it is. UNC is a better team right now. But should be 5-1, right? But again, there's progress being made. There's incremental progress being made on both sides of the ball. When you're looking at, what you're not giving up on defense. Has there been some lapses? Yeah. But at the same time, you play some good offenses, right? I mean, you Texas A&M, hell of an offense with that kid, Connor Wegman. I mean, the kid is super mobile, really, really good player, 5-star kid, played UNC with a, more than likely, but, by most accounts, a top 2 pick in the upcoming draft at quarterback, loaded at receiver, really good running backs, good offensive line. Tez Walker went nuts. You can see why they wanted him back, and just bad timing for Miami. That was second game that he had since he's been back, and torched them. They couldn't really handle the kid. Is a stud. So, but again, outside of that, there's progress, right? You look at the numbers, there's progress, and so now you have to, again, 500 yards a game, great, awesome, but now you have to start looking at that and okay, we're halfway through the season. We've got enough, tape here where we need to start making some adjustments, because the offense has been good, but it can be better. Right. And I think you mentioned that, right? Throwing to Xavier Restrepo, I think, listen, there's no harm there. There's no harm there. Right. The kid that you're throwing to, because the kid is a really, really good receiver. The trust is there. He's proven it. The kid is dependable. He gets open. He rarely drops a pass. And, the kid, he catches it. More likely it's a first down. Again, dependable kid. But at the same time, like you mentioned, right, if you want these guys to stay engaged, you're going to have to find a way to give them the ball. Again, the first year, deal is a real thing, but you want these tight ends to stay involved, and the guys who are coming in to stay committed, the guys where they're already not hit the portal, they need to know that they're going to be part of this game plan moving forward. They're not just going to be glorified tackles. So I think there's a lot of talent on this team at running back. The running back room is great. The receiver room is a lot of bodies there with a lot of like 4-star kids. Frank Ladson, which obviously hasn't really worked out. That kid was a 5-star coming out. The tight end room has a lot of talent. So I think there is, I think as a first-year offensive coordinator, you're still working through, okay, who do I want, in this position? Who do I want in that position? And they're still working through that. But I think it's a good problem to have. There's a lot of talent on that team. I feel like he just hasn't figured out, where all the pieces go just yet. Like, he knows X, he knows Colby Young, obviously Jacoby George, all three of them have been really good. I think the running back room, he's still trying to figure out who's going to play when. The tight end room, he's still trying to figure out the same thing. Luckily, the O-line looks like they've figured things out. They've been, for the most part, really, really good. There's progress. It's just, they're not 6-0 ranked in the top 10. That's not there yet. But I think there's anybody who says they're not moving in the right direction didn't watch them play last year. So again, they're everybody, like Aaron Rodgers says, RELAX, everybody relax. Mm-hmm. They're not going to win 12 games this year. But to me, the future is bright.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we have to be patient. Again, yeah. It is. I mean, it's a good problem to have when your biggest criticism is that your slot receiver has a ton of catches. With last year, no one could catch. I mean, it's like everyone had butterfingers. I mean, the receiving core had drops issues. We're averaging about less than 4 yards per carry. The running game has definitely improved this year. The offensive line is being nominated for the highest award for lines, for linemen in the country.
Joe Moore Award.
The Joe Moore Award, yeah. So I mean, we're doing very well. It's just a matter of, again, Georgia Tech didn't help, right? Georgia Tech didn't help, and then losing to UNC didn't help either, because it didn't help to heal the pain of the loss from Georgia Tech. But it's funny though, because everyone that understands football, even though I felt like we could upset UNC, had a loss. Okay, mm-hmm. Had a loss. Coach Coop, who I spoke with today, he had UM. He's a huge fan. You cannot. That mm-hmm. guy drove from Tennessee all the way down to Miami, okay, just to see them play Clemson. He didn't fly. He drove down. He puts his time, and even he's nope. And yeah, he did it. And
Coop, there's travel apps out there. Coop, I'm in Atlanta. I'm not driving to Miami, bro. There's travel apps out there. Look them up, use them. There's no reason to drive from Tennessee, man. Use the travel apps. plane trips are very affordable right now. Don't drive. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah, but he did it, man. But to his
Yeah, that's
credit,
impressive.
he did it, and to his credit, he said he picked UNC, so it's no surprise. It's just because of the week prior, and so on. It was just an issue. All right, before we close up part one of this episode, some keys to the game. So, what do you think Miami has to do to defeat the Clemson Tigers on defense and on offense?
I think first and foremost, I think it all starts like it has the entire season for Miami. It starts on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I think you got to establish the run. You got to make sure that TVD is not dropping back, 40 times. Everything with him starts with running the ball, because that opens up play action, so on and so forth. I think, in my opinion, and it's rare that you've been able to say that in this series, but I think Miami has the advantage on the offensive line. When you're talking offensive line versus their defensive line, I think this year it's different in that Miami has the advantage of the offensive line. I think they got to use that. I think they got to run the ball. I think they have to, use play action, get the ball to the playmakers, and TVD has to take care of the ball. When you're talking about, playing against a defense like Clemson's, you have two NFL linebackers. Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter are studs. Before the season started, most people had them as the best linebacker room in the country. So you got to make sure that you're not letting those guys, affect the game. You got to make sure that, you got eyes on them, know where they're at. I think this is one of those games that, we talked about getting the tight ends involved. I don't know that it's going to happen this game because I think, those guys either in coverage, they're going to have to deal with those guys, or they're going to be kept in the block in order to, again, battle, Tyler Davis, this kid Parker that they have at the defensive end, he's a true freshman. He's been balling this year. He leads them in tackles for loss and sacks and the whole deal. So, again, I think their DBs traditionally have been really, really good, but I think if Tyler gets time, I think we've got the type of receivers that can get open against those guys. So for me, I think that's the key right there is when it's Miami on offense versus their defense. I think that's going to be the key is the offensive line. I think on defense, there's a lot of injuries to that Miami D line. Akeem Mesidor hasn't played since game one. I was talking to a buddy of mine with some connections down there, and they were saying that they miss him like crazy. Their saving grace from everything I'm hearing has been that Ruben Bain has been better than anticipated. He's come in and really, really just made a huge impact on that defense. And if it wasn't for him, they'd be in bad shape. So, for me, I think the O-line gets it done. I think they give TVD time. I think Miami wins a game. I'm going like 30-24. Would be my prediction, but I think Miami gets it done at home.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Miami's gonna have to establish the running game early on. I think they're gonna have to literally average about 5 yards per carry. Keep Kate Klubnik off the field in general. Miami, the good thing about Miami's defense, they will not be facing the receiving core they faced last week. So I do expect some matchups to be won by the Canes defensive backfield. The Canes defensive backfield has been much maligned, the last couple games because they've given up.
They've struggled.
Yeah, yep. They've given up some big plays and so on. Some of it is their own mistakes. Some of it has been bad defensive calls by our defensive coordinator making some mistakes, in coverage.
Georgia Tech game.
Yeah, a lot of people blame Cam, but I looked at the film over and over again. I have a friend that we argued. We're both teachers, and we argued in the hallway over that issue. He played football for Columbus, and they fought for Columbus, and he watched the film. That defense was meant to pinch to just keep them at field goal range. So if you look at the footage, even James Williams came forward. The problem was that Cam's the one that ended up on film because his man is the one that caught the ball. But that could have happened to James Williams as well. He pinched as well.
That was one of those calls, man. Again, when you talk about everything that went wrong in that game, and not to rip open old scabs and stuff, but that was just bad coaching. To me, and again, I'm never played football, never coached football, but again, I've been watching football for 35 years. I mean, you're looking at that and you're going, listen, where we're at in this game is 23, 24 seconds left, whatever it is. Like your safety should be at the 50-yard line. Like you can't get beat deep, and that's peewee football. You can't get beat. You can't let a receiver get behind you in that instance. So definitely some questionable coaching calls. And I think if they
Yeah.
had to do it over again, they would do it differently. So yeah, the DBs, I think, the linebackers have definitely stepped up this year. They played well. The D line, unfortunately, with Branson Dean, who hasn't, he's missed a couple games, Mesidor, so on and so forth. But that front seven has been really good. The safeties have been good. The corners haven't been great this year. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But they're also, like you mentioned, not playing the caliber receivers that they played last week, and not playing the caliber receivers in Clemson that they traditionally have year over year. That kid Bo Collins is their leading receiver.
Yeah.
Big kid. He's like 6'3". You can run pretty well, but he's not what they've had at receiver in the last couple of years. No disrespect to him, but he's just not a guy that is, to the level of receivers that they've had in the, your Justin Rosses and so on and so forth here in the last couple of years. So again, I think they show up. Again, I'm calling it Miami 30, Clemson 24 is what I'm going with.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not gonna make a prediction because I haven't been lucky lately. So I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on that one.
Yeah, keep it quiet, man.
I, I'm,
Don't be.
be quiet on this one. So I will not predict, but I do think
No.
Miami has the best chance this year to beat Clemson. I do think they need to win more. And again, if they play, if they run the football, they keep Clemson's offense off the field. And if they're able to, they're able to establish themselves on defense, that front seven has got to eat pressure, harass Kate Klubnik, and neutralize with receivers, and they have to win the turnover battle. Okay, you cannot be in the negative and plus or minus. You have to be, victorious in that regard. So if that's in the end what's going to come down to. Both losses for the Canes, they've lost the turnover battle, and that has got to change. When they beat A&M, they won the turnover battle.
They're not good enough. They're not good enough right now
Fall behind.
to fall behind and to give away the ball the
Yeah.
way they have been the last couple of weeks. It's the truth. Have they show progress? Yes, but they're not good enough right now to be as careless as they've been with the ball and still win the games. They're not there yet. And most people, listen, it's you look at all the numbers, throughout the history of football games, is you lose a turnover battle, more often than not, you're going to lose a game.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
It's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're done with part one. All right, of our talk with Q. Okay, if you like what you heard, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to 5 Sports now. Get ready for part two, as it will be airing on Sunday. So see you in a bit, guys. Bye-bye.